Nicknamed Lemons to Lemonade and focusing on the vast number of federally dictated 1960s standard model houses that still stand on Indian reserves across Canada, this demonstration project will revitalize 6 identical 1960s Indian Reserve homes in 6 different ways, addressing an array of proven housing needs on reserves. This nationally repeatable pilot will be implemented on Ktunaxa homelands in southeastern British Columbia, led by esteemed elder Sophie Pierre, former chief of the Akam Band and former chief commissioner of the BC Treaty Commission. The Ktunaxa Reserve Housing Revitalization Pilot Team is proposing a diversity of prototype solutions for the same small house model across the 4 Ktunaxa reserves in the Kootenay region of BC. The same house that was mandated in the 1960s on reserves all across Canada. This 800 square foot single-story rectangular bungalow, the stereotypical reserve house, today represents on average 10% of the existing housing supply on Indian reserves across the country, with many nations retaining much higher rates. This simple design is ideal for tackling urgent and proven needs on reserves, such as aging in place, accessibility and disability challenges, climate resiliency, and the reclamation of abandoned homes back into the housing stock, in a manner that models both carbon and heritage conservation and that can be copied and repeated all across Canada. The 1960s standard Indian Reserve House model exists on all Indian reserves across Canada. On the 4 Ktunaxa reserves, it represents between 8.5% and 28% of all houses. Our research concludes that Canada-wide there is a minimum of 9% of 1960s homes on all reserves, amounting to somewhere between 6,000 and 8,000 of these houses nationally. This cost-effective, resourceful, and environmentally conscious approach is fueled by the belief that the greenest building is the one that is already built, and that we need to start conserving our viable existing building stock to achieve sustainability. This Indigenous-led initiative proposes an approach of conservation and reuse, which stands as a model to society at large. We need to halt the catastrophic environmental consequences of unrestricted demolitions and low-quality, low-durability construction practices and materials. These homes each hold the stories of 3 or more generations and could be innovatively adapted to help Indigenous families across Canada leave a positive legacy for their descendants.
Our communities deal with relentless hardships, but over time we have developed a resiliency that allows us to make the best of what we have to work with. And we have even modeled to the non-Indigenous communities how to do this. What we have to work with here are small, single-story bungalows that were poorly designed to begin with, but we have a vision for making them ideal, versatile, efficient, and comfortable homes for all types of situations that families face today on reserves. We are happy to lead the way in modeling smart conservation, innovative adaptation, and design efficacy, as this is what our planet needs today to ensure a sustainable future for all.
The 1960s Indian Reserve House has the following characteristics: rectangular side-gabled bungalow, approximately 800 square feet in size, clean, simple roof lines, 2x4 construction with wood siding over sheathing, rafters with an unconditioned vented attic space, a vented unconditioned crawl space, central hall design, 3 bedrooms and 1 small bathroom, a kitchen with a single counter, sink, stove, and fridge, and minimal built-in upper cupboards, a picture window in the living room with smaller windows elsewhere, a front door, and a back door. The 1960s houses on Ktunaxa reserves represent the oldest building stock typology lived in today by residents. While there are a handful of 1950s houses that can still be found, most of those have been abandoned for their inadequate size, and there is not a significant enough number of them to justify a revitalization program. Like all houses on reserve, the 1960s homes have been maintained and or renovated to varying degrees, but the vast majority have not been updated to current construction or livability standards. Likely for this reason, on every one of the 4 Ktunaxa reserves, there are at least one and sometimes several 1960s houses that are currently abandoned or condemned. On the Ktunaxa Reserve alone, there are 5 vacant 1960s homes. However, because of the shortage and overcrowding of houses on the reserves, there are several cases where people are occupying condemned 1960s houses, living in very challenging conditions. All these condemned or vacant buildings could be revitalized and brought back into the housing stock, offering livable, comfortable homes to residents who are currently homeless, living in overcrowded households, or forced to live away from their home community off reserve.
The whole idea started from my own desire to fix up what was my mother's house, a home that I moved out of 54 years ago, and now I've moved back in again. And so I'm fixing it up for my husband and I for aging in place. The thing that makes the 1960s home ideal is that it's all on one level, and it's just a square box with 3 bedrooms, a very tiny little bathroom, a kitchen, and a living room. And it's all within 800 and 900 square feet. Some of them are a little bit bigger than others, but they're all right around that margin. And they were all built exactly the same right across this country. So when we look at solutions for this type of house, for say aging in place, these are going to be solutions. We're going to be looking at finding the best solutions. And these are going to be available to any Indian reserve across Canada that wants to do that kind of renovation to their 60s homes that are built, exactly the same. Same thing with the making it more accessible for handicap. And what it should mean is actually making the whole home more livable, widening doorways so you can get through with wheelchairs, and just opening the house up, removing parts of walls just to open up the house to make it more brighter, for one thing, to make it easier to move around. And one of the most important things is dealing with the bathrooms.
After conducting widespread engagement and interviews with the residents of all 4 reserves, we've identified 6 candidate homes to revitalize based on a clear criteria matrix including resident need and readiness. With the support of hazmat, energy, construction, and design professionals, we've customized a series of layout and upgrade packages that respond to the specific needs of the candidate families, but which also represent desired livability scenarios identified through the Survey of the Nation. Age-in-place layout, climate resiliency upgrades, accessible design for disability layout, energy efficiency upgrades, multi-generational layout, young family with kids layout, reclamation of abandoned buildings and reconnection to grid, work-from-home layout. The specifications for each prototype will be uploaded to a website where other Indian bands can access them and use them to carry out renovations on their own 1960s homes. Regional revisions and adaptations to the prototypes can also be uploaded to create a living library of solutions that will grow and inspire the revitalization and reclamation of these houses all across Canada. Our team includes local organizations and professionals who already have a working relationship with the Ktunaxa Nation and all 4 reserves. A self-sustaining financing model that allows the continuation of more revitalizations after the first 6 prototypes are completed is key to modeling a new way of doing housing on Indian reserves. A way that is Indigenous-led and resident-engaged. A way that is holistic and proposes renovations that don't address only one aspect and leave gaping livability and maintenance issues unresolved. A project that doesn't just focus on energy efficiency, but also on livability and climate resiliency. A way that prioritizes upgrading and improving the existing buildings that have already been built on reserve and that have meaning, history, and connection for multiple families and their descendants. A way that meets or exceeds the livability and comfort standards for non-Indigenous or off-reserve housing. A way that doesn't depend on heavy bureaucracy and the already strained capacity of band administration. A way that is not wasteful, reusing existing materials, infrastructure, and knowledge. A way that offers reconciliation, turning wrongs into rights. A way that is inclusive and adaptable, which could potentially be implemented on every Indian reserve in Canada.